potential questions that are asked in interviews for these schools. These will include all kinds of questions, and do not consider this as an exhaustive list, because basis your CV, your personal CVs, and basis your work experiences, there might be more questions relating to the graduation field. So I'll start from very basic. So things before going into mainstream chemical engineering, things like oil and gas prices, petrol pricing, how geopolitics affect the prices for oil and petroleum, all these things, the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries, the OPEC policies, all these things also form the basis of a lot of questions. And since over the past 2 years, interviewers have a lot of content around wars and geopolitics scenario, they mix those scenarios alongside of chemical engineering per se, and they mix them together and ask questions relating to news cycles, policy changes, geopolitics, supply and consumer demand, and other reports, other related reports that would help you gauge the price of oil and gas. So this is one very important question field in totality that can serve as a potential question answer session. Make sure that you all have a brief idea of how oil and gas prices are calculated first, how petrol pricing in India is done. So petrol pricing in India is necessarily, I mean, there is refinery gate price, then there is VAT, then there is dealer pricing. So I think it's a cumulative pricing of a lot of individual factors. So make sure you keep a tab and also know what each of these factors are. And these are not particularly chemical engineering based, or it's not, you can give a lot of premise building also around these questions, but make sure that you go through these two particular topics in detail. One is petroleum and the other is petrol pricing in India, and how the third is how oil and gas prices are affected by other external factors. This forms the first set of questions that could be asked to you. The second, as we delve deeper into chemical engineering, core chemical engineering, when we come to heat transfer or mass transfer, for heat transfer, there could be a cheat sheet for all the dimensionless numbers that you have learned. Now, the dimensionless numbers need not be very, I mean, they are not very difficult. They'll not ask you a Nusselt number or a Prandtl number, but they might ask you a Reynolds number, what its formula is, where is it used, and have you ever encountered a scenario where in real life you have used the application of calculating the Reynolds number. So that could be one. Its formula, how do you break down the formula, what each of the what the nomenclature is, what the nomenclature means, how is it calculated, its metric. So I think dimensionless numbers as basic as a Reynolds number could be asked. They could go up to something tougher basis your experience. If you are in an oil-based industry previously, or if you have worked in, say, the water sintering plant of a steel industry, they might go deeper into this aspect. But for all other people who have like no experience in the core industry and yet have chemical engineering on the CV, the dimensionless numbers could be a little basic. This was for heat transfer. Again, for heat transfer, there could be heat transport mechanisms. How is heat transferred? Induction, convection, conduction, radiation. How are they different from each other? What are the differences? How are these calculated? I mean, for radiation and all, the formula is very difficult. So they won't ask you the exact formula, but you should be knowing how each of this is different from one another. Going on to thermodynamics, since heat transfer and thermodynamics are related, so they might even ask you if thermodynamics and heat transfer are similar or different, and if different, why are they different, and give me a real world example of an application of heat transfer and give me a real world example of thermodynamics. So you have to cover both of these aspects also. Very basic differences is heat transport is through heat transfer, and thermodynamics is obviously heat conversion and all the internal processes. The very basic questions with regards to thermodynamics will be the laws. When you cover the laws, all the three laws, make sure to not miss out on the 0th law also. So it's a very, while I was giving my interview for IIFT, I was stuck at some point, and I started with the 3 laws of thermodynamics, but I missed out on the 0th law. I mean, it's not a judgmental factor. It's not a make or break criteria, but if you are answering, it looks very wholesome if you covered the 0th law as well. So don't miss out on these small aspects. The 4 laws of thermodynamics. What have you done what have you studied all through your engineering life in thermodynamics? It could be the laws, it could be internal energy, it could be work calculation, it could be entropy. So all of these things they might ask you. They might also ask you, how do you actually have you ever, I mean, since the 3rd law says that something related to a perfect crystal, so they might ask you on that note. We can go on to say they'll ask you, what is crystallization, what is the difference between crystallization and distillation, evaporation and distillation. So all these questions are interrelated, and from one field they might go on to the other very organically. One thing I missed in heat transfer is a lot of questions would be around heat exchangers, which are the most common types of heat exchangers, how are shell and tube exchangers used in industries. Speaking from personal experience, I was asked about the steel industry because I had something around it written on my CV. So when that is done, you have to know what is a shell and tube exchanger, how is the efficiency calculated, how can you increase the efficiency, and if other heat exchangers could be used in place of a shell and tube, because people are not used to saying a lot of other heat exchangers apart from shell and tube. So make sure that you know at least 2 or 3 apart from the main ones. And where are they used? So they are used in blast furnaces in the steel industry, but they are used at a lot of other places. This was from my personal learning, but there are threads on Quora where you can get detailed analysis of where these heat exchangers are used. So that is also a very interesting and important part. Apart from this, there can be basic questions like, what is the difference between unit process and unit operations? Very basic. Mass transfer 101. What is the difference? How do you quantify these processes? How do you quantify unit operations? Which ones are the ones where chemical processes are involved? Which ones are physical processes alone? This is again something which can be asked. It's very basic, and they might expect you to answer it correctly at one go. Again, there are separate processes when we study mass transfer for chemical engineering, which are important. You should know what is diffusion, adsorption, difference between adsorption, absorption, adsorbate, absorbate. So you know a slight change of one letter would cause the entire definition to change. तो ऐसा होगा कि कंफ्यूज करने के लिए बोलेंगे कि एड्सॉर्प्शन में क्या होता है, एब्जॉर्प्शन में क्या होता है, एंड देन सडनली दे आर आस्किंग यू, क्योंकि एड्सॉर्प्शन की टॉपिक चल रही है, दे कैन गो ऑन टू आस्क यू कि क्रोमैटोग्राफी क्या होता है, क्योंकि सिमिलर प्रिंसिपल पे एक क्वेश्चन है. तो ऐसा होगा कि क्वेश्चन के डेफिनेशन से स्टार्ट होगा, बट दे विल गो ऑन टू आस्क यू समथिंग व्हिच इज एन एप्लीकेशन ऑफ दैट थ्योरी, प्रिंसिपल, लॉ, व्हाटएवर. क्योंकि जब आपसे थर्मोडायनेमिक्स के लॉज पूछे जाएंगे, उसके बाद तुरंत उसका एप्लीकेशन आएगा. जब हीट ट्रांसफर पूछा जाएगा कि कन्वेक्शन क्या होता है, तो तुरंत उसके बारे में पूछा जाएगा कि उसका एप्लीकेशन बताओ, या आपकी सीवी पर अगर ऐसा कोई चीज है जो important है, they might ask you straight up, what is the application, how have you worked around it, do you know of any exceptions to whatever definition theory you are quoting. फिर there is distillation, there is fractional distillation. तो इनका differences जो होता है, you have to know what are the differences between these two processes. Slight differences हैं कि when the boiling points are very close to each other, which process is used. And agar uska you answer that correctly, they'll automatically ask you which process in actually real world do you find fractional distillation being used. So you have to say कि जब crude oil का distillation होता है, then we use. When there is fractional distillation, there is destructive distillation, there is simple distillation. So all these processes जिनके और भी subcategories हैं, they are important. Differences between drying, absorption, evaporation, and boiling. Very basic, very high schoolish, but you might, matlab, we have a tendency to fumble in our interviews. तो ऐसा है कि just know what is the difference, which one is superficial one, which one is bulk, which one is a bulk process, which one is just surface level. वो है. फिर evaporation से काफी कुछ पूछ सकते हैं, application based. Since on the topic of evaporation, they might even ask you कि पहाड़ों पर why is cooking difficult? What happens when the temperature goes down, pressure ज़्यादा हो जाती है? What are the ramifications of the process? तो very basic process, application तुरंत पूछा जाएगा, and they might ask you something one related to the other. इसके अलावा there is packed versus straight hours. When you go on to learn about heat exchangers, which covers like a massive portion of heat transfer, there are aspects like there is towers, there are a lot of other equipment related information which you would obviously study. I do not remember that in such minute detail, but obviously there will be difference between packed tower, straight tower. How does the process happen? How do we increase the efficiency? Know the formula of efficiency. But they'll always ask you something as basic as iske formula mein unit hota hai ki nahi. Now, if it's a ratio, it's automatically, it doesn't have a unit. But हम लोग धड़बड़ा के ये बोल देते हैं कि अच्छा इसका यूनिट तो ये होना चाहिए. But that's not the case. तो ये सब्जेक्ट वाइज ये होता है. कमिंग ऑन टू रिएक्शन मैकेनिज्म्स, जिन लोगों का कोर केमिकल रहा है प्रीवियसली एंड दे हैव वर्कड इन अ कोर केमिकल इंडस्ट्री लाइक अ प्लास्टिक इंडस्ट्री और अ पेंट इंडस्ट्री, समथिंग रिलेटेड टू टेक्सटाइल, पल्प, तो ये सारे जो ब्रांचेस होते हैं इसमें they might give you an abstract topic like paper cut formation में, manufacturing में, how do we transition into a sustainable manufacturing process, how do we reduce the carbon footprint. All these are abstract questions. They can be answered with a lot of gas, as we say, but if they are asking you from a chemical standpoint, then you have to go technical कि क्या होना चाहिए, क्या नहीं होना चाहिए, how would paper, pulp, etc., all these things contribute to the increased carbon footprint, and how can an engineer ensure that the carbon footprint goes down, right? When there is textile involved, they might ask you कि कैसे pollution होता है, किस process पे pollution सबसे ज़्यादा हो सकता है. Like I remember a friend of mine had a similar question in an interview for an IIM. He was asked कि jeans की making में बहुत pollution होता है, something related to this, and how do you aim to reduce it? And his was also a background in textile engineering. So these questions also get asked कि क्योंकि जीन्स में इंडिगो का यूज होता है, डेनिम्स में वैसा यूजेज ऑफ सच रॉ मटेरियल इज देयर, तो they ask something related to this. For this particularly, for such type of questions which involves carbon footprints, your textile pulp, wood, plastic, etc., make sure you remember some of the SDGs, which are Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17, I guess, but even if you know some and you kind of combine it with your core answer, it makes for a very good, convincing, impactful answer. So remember some of these goals that we have. Talking about particularly this industry, there will be questions around plastics. And when we talk about plastics, there might be questions around polymers and monomers. Not saying that it's very important to kind of memorize all the monomers that is normally present in textbooks, but at least know of the, common ones, the more prominent ones, like say nylon का क्या है, nylon 6,6 का क्या है, nylon 6 का I don't remember something, caprolactam है, nylon 6,6 का hexamethylene amine कुछ adipic acid है. मतलब they don't ask you directly what is it, but if you know the monomer and you quote the monomer and say कि ये harmful है, because one of the two nylons is not really good for an industry, from an industry standpoint. But then again, one of the nylons is more economical and practical to produce. Now there will be a trade-off, so you can explain all these questions using कि इसका monomer ये होता है, rubber का monomer क्या है, I think isoprene होता है rubber का monomer. So questions like these जो बहुत basic चीजें हैं. There is nylon, there is rubber, there could be bakelite जिससे saucepan बनता है, saucepan का handle. तो very simple but real world से जुड़ा हुआ इनके production में what do you think? And since we are at it, chemical industry के बारे में जब भी बात होती है तो there is also a certain aspect in which they can ask you कि since it's a very heavy engineering core metallic या जो भी heavy engineering industry, how do you plan to market these activities? How do you plan to market such an industry? Because people generally associate this industry with a lot of core behavior. तो इनका marketing कैसे हो सकता है? तो once you know all these aspects also like in a technical way, it's more easier. It's easier to convince other people about it. तो ये है आपका textile related questions के answers के लिए. तो ये है. Apart from all this, a very general blanket instruction would be to go through current news around sustainability. You can go through innovations that have taken place in the recent times around chemical industries. Go through Asian Paints ka annual report because it's one such industry and one such company which has done a lot in terms of sustainability and its chemical. Since it's a very heavy paint industry, still it has managed to bag a very high sustainability index. So there's a lot of things that they are planning to do that they do. So it's recommended for chemical engineers to go through the annual report of Asian Paints. I'm not sure if there is such a media coverage is there or is there not. I'm sure last का जो recently होगा वो आप लोग पढ़ सकते हो. तो Asian Paints is one such industry you should cover. Tata Chemicals, Tata Pigments, इसका कुछ media report आता है तो वो पढ़ लीजिए. It will be very helpful. Apart from this, अगर oil and gas industry का देखना है, there could be मतलब आप देख सकते हो वो तो बहुत ज़्यादा public domain में available है कोई भी information. So I think news पे tab sustainability or subject wise whichever things that I have said. I think it was a long monologue. I'll open the floor to questions and probably answer questions from now. But all these things in isolation and together cumulatively would help you ace your interview questions related to chemical engineering. Yeah. So I think I can take questions now. You can put your questions in chat or you can unmute yourselves and ask. Hello.
Hi, Sharanya.
Hi, Nishchay. Nishant. No. You won't be. I'm so sorry, Nishchay. I just took a question from the chat.
No issues.
Are we expected to? No, you won't be asked to derive any kind of equations. It's good that you know some formula because that would help you substantiate your answer with better arguments. But no derivation of anything.
Yes, Sharanya. I just wanted to check. So, I have not so decent CG, mostly because of chemical subjects. So, is it possible that they'll look through my transcript, pick up a subject where I don't have a decent grade in, and then just go around it, or?
No. Most of the interviews that you'll be appearing for, none of them would try to do this. But there are subjects in your chemical engineering course which often get overlooked, neglected, and people generally don't pick up questions from there. So it's fine. It's not a big issue. Plus, they will just pick up very popular subjects. Like I said, they'd pick up a heat transfer, thermodynamics, mass transfer. If at all the panelist unfortunately is from a chemical engineering domain, he or she might pick up a fluid dynamics topic, but not anything beyond this. And these 3-4 subjects are enough and more for your preparation. And apart from this, every other question would be very generic, current news based, in which you can apply a lot of chemical engineering sense.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hey, Nishant.
Hi, Sharanya. So I have the opposite question. So I have a decent CG, but my work experience is not in the chemical engineering domain. So
Correct.
am I expected to be thorough with the concepts of chemical engineering, given that I have 2.5 years of experience, work experience?
Okay. Got it. No, you are not expected. See, people who have work ex in a different field would not get a lot of questions from their graduation. Yet, I would say that you also kind of brush through the topics because they won't delve, I mean, they won't go very deep into your grad subjects. They'll mostly, your questions would be mostly around what you've done in the recent past. But all these subjects which I said, which actually are kind of the flag bearers of chemical engineering, just go through these concepts, just know what is there, just know the four laws of thermo, just know what is the first law equation. So learn these things, at least have in mind what might be a potential question. But yeah, I don't expect the interviewer to ask a lot of questions, I mean, from the grad.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah. Yes, Saransh, you can unmute yourself and speak.
Ma'am, actually, I have done my graduation in plastic technology itself,
Okay.
a bit niche branch. And
Hmm.
after that, ma'am, I'm currently in Reliance Industries. I'm in sales role, but I'm selling
Mhm.
polymers only.
Correct.
So, what sort of questions can I expect in the? And I have a decent CGPA. I was a branch topper in my branch. So, what all questions can I expect?
Okay, so Saransh, first of all, you don't need to call me ma'am. I'm really no ma'am. You can call me Sharanya. So yes, Saransh, since you have done I mean, you have a degree from in a very niche domain, as you've said, your questions would be mostly around what your role in Reliance is. First of all, what do you work at the shop floor? What does your role look like? Is it
Ma'am,
just dealing with
yes, ma'am.
different stakeholders?
It's kind of a field job only. We have to visit the plants and all, but majorly it's about the warehouse management and all, like the material, how to sell it and how to manage it and all. But yeah, we have to visit the shop floors as well.
Okay, so I think your work is, you could be asked questions around how you could, your questions would be mostly around sustainability as far as I envisage. Also, I think since you are working with warehouse management, inventory, etc., and you have a sales job, you can get questions around Six Sigma, and you can get a lot of questions around error minimization. How do you promote safety on shop floors? How do you deal with stakeholders? How do you plan to promote sustainability? What kind of polymers are hazardous for an industry like yours? Something like this. I mean, it wouldn't be very discordant with what you work, mostly related to what you're currently working in or are into. But yeah, your background in plastic technology would help you answer questions if at all they ask you about polymers or anything related to it.
Ma'am, one more question. It's not a technical question at all.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
ma'am, sorry, Sharanya, actually
yeah.
what happened is ki, my mentor told me to make a narrative in my introduction. So how
Correct.
can I link me doing BTech in plastic technology with my 12th? How do I link it that in 12th I did this, so I got an interest in polymers? Because again, linking polymers is a bit difficult. So how can I do that?
I think you can speak. Were you interested in chemistry by any chance?
I was sort of interested, more interested in physics, but I by
Okay.
chance I got this branch in a good college, so I went with that back then.
Okay. So you can maybe speak about how, I mean, I do not actually know how the flow of your introduction should be, and your mentor would better help you in framing the answer. But my suggestion would be, if you really want to make this like a story, you can talk about things that piqued your interest in high school or senior secondary, when you observed things that looked like they were formed of just one element or a compound, but actually they were a combination of a lot of other things. So when we
I
look at a saucepans. Yes, sir, do you want to say something?
yeah. I'll take this.
Yes, sir, sure. Thank you so much.
So who was that? Who was asking this?
Sir, I think Saransh is asking.
Karan, you are from HBTI Kanpur.
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So you can build a narrative like this. So you can talk about, first of all, you are a branch topper, right? So in case you are going to add this in your introduction, then your answer level should going to increase. If you're not going to talk about this, then yeah, then you can turn around to your experience that Sharanya has already told, right?
Yes, sir. As
Coming
of
to
now, I have
the
not included the point in my
yeah,
introduction. As of now, I have not included any point regarding
it's
my.
open call, right? So like I have seen people, if they got some like branch top or gold medal, they always include this. But if you want to drop, you can drop, right? Then comes the point that how you are going to build the narrative. So you can tell them upfront, like, this was my rank, right? So there were the two choices I had. Either go with the like HBTI is the top most college in the UP, right? So you have two options. Either you go for a better branch like computer science or the core branch, or you go for a like whatever branch you are getting in a HBTI. So you have chosen the plastic technology. Why? Because of the legacy of the school plus the alumni network that you are going to get. So you have talked to people and you found out that the alumni are like, I think it's more than 100 years old college, right? So
Yes,
talk
sir.
about the legacy about this, and maybe you can also tell them that SBTI is the school where IIT Kanpur was incubated, right? So if I'm not
Yeah,
wrong
yeah.
about,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
so just tell them that I have decided to go for something which have not like all the interest in that, but still you had some interest. Plus, the main thing that you focus on the legacy part of that school or the engineering college. So that makes your narrative clear that you believe in brands, right? So SBTI itself is a brand in itself. So you can build around your narrative around this.
Okay. Thanks, sir. Thanks.
Others, you can continue. Guys, ask Saranyam, ma'am is here.
Sharanya,
Yes.
I had a question.
Yeah, sure,
So
Aditya.
I don't have any like job experience in chemical. I graduated and I am working in some other field, right? So I don't expect, as you said, a lot of questioning in that field. But if you and I am having trouble finding my notes. It was 3 years back, right? And I don't have it. And I tried to get it from my friends in college, but they're also not having. So if you have some materials which you refer to while your preparation for interviews, and if you can share, that will help a lot.
Sure. Whatever material I have, I'll share it in the chemical Discord group. And for starters, guys, there is a report by KPMG on oil and gas. I think it's 2023 only. I'm not very sure of the date exactly, but it's a 25-pager report on how oil and gas prices get affected. It's a very detailed, very B school specific thing that you can read. It's a good read. You all can download that and start reading for starters. There are cheat sheets for dimensionless numbers. I'll share the ones that I have. It's been long, so I'll have to do a little searching. But I'll for sure put that in the group so that everyone uh, has a good hand at it. Apart from this, there are uh, yes, Shankesh, I'll just address your question after I complete my answer. So apart from this, there are a few questions which are like rapid fire questions, which I'm sure you'll get through. I mean, get at any site that you Google. There are Quora threads also. There are a few threads on Reddit from where I found some questions, but that wasn't very effective for me. But at least you can use these three materials, some reports, some company reports which I mentioned, and some material I'll share myself. If I have my notes available, I'll share that as well.
Sure, thank you.
I hope that is of some help to you, Aditya.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Yeah. Shankesh asks, should I mention my gate rank in intro? Sh- Prashant sir, would you take this question or?
I'll take this.
Yes, sir.
So Sankesh, again, if you are the writer director of your story, right? So if you had done something good in your life, so don't hesitate in talking about this. You know that there will be cross question that why you're not going for MTech or some PSU jobs, because from good gate rank that you are going to get, right? So if you are ready for that, go ahead. Otherwise, drop that. I hope I'm clear. Okay. Others, please ask more questions. Not something not related to only chemical or generic grad preparation. You can ask, right?
Sharanya, I just wanted one more thing. How much depth should I go into? Like, because when I will start like revising on every topic, it keeps on going into deep and deep and deep. Every new thing, new term which I get on the internet, that's not familiar. Then I will dive into that and I will think that okay, this also might be ours. So it's a bit difficult to decide as to how much depth I should go into, right? Because it's an ocean out there. 4 years of chemical engineering and a lot of things were studied. So yeah,
So I think, Aditya, it's a very valid question. So once they ask you something, it's like you start speaking and then you don't stop. It's a very common mistake also, if to say the least. It's like a mistake. So you should like give them an answer which convinces them that you know something about the subject matter, but you don't go as deep as they either zoning out of the conversation or they finding a particular point where they can start questioning you more. So I'll give you a very short example. If they ask you how is steel made, you can tell them that steel, the raw material comes, the raw material is coal. It is converted into coke in the coke oven. It then goes to the blast furnace. It is melted at high temperatures and pressure. It then goes to a steel melting shop. It goes to a cold rolling mill. The product could be iron rods, it could be long format iron, it could be iron ingot, anything. And then it goes to the marketing department for marketing. Now, if you are to, this is the basic layout of a steel industry. There are other departments, of course, but if you go on to say that steel is made in coke oven, there are 3 types of ores. There is magnetite, there is hematite, there is something else. Now they will find areas where they can question you more. Which one is impure? Which one is purer? How do you measure impurity? How is the waste generated? What is the temperature at which coal is converted to coke? What is the catalyst used? If you go on to speak about these details, you will find yourself grilled more. But if you give them an overview of the entire industry where you pick all the important points and then you at least give them an answer in which says that you know about the industry but you have not gone into so much detail, I think that is the answer which they want. It's crisp, it's succinct, and they are convinced that you know your subject.
Okay, so just a follow-up question here. So in chemical, the example which you gave of how steel is made. Now, chemical curriculum, this is not like taught, right? I mean, if you have some,
it is not.
yeah,
Correct.
if you have industry experience, then you would know that. But chemical, it's all about the mass transfer, heat transfer, the physics behind, a lot of physics, right? So now, if the interviewer is from I'm not, if he's from chemical background, then he would know what all should be asked. If he's not, then he might ask things like this. Now, this is something which I have not read, and I'm not working in chemical industry, so I would not know, right? So how to tackle those questions, and what should I respond there?
Yeah. So if they ask you a very straight up chemical engineering question, say, where do you use diffusion, or where is diffusion used in our daily life? See, it's also a very simple question, but it's actually a subject question where you say that, agarbatti or incense sticks used in our homes or something else, your perfume, your deo, your antiperspirants be getting used is also diffusion. Now you explain what is diffusion. You've given a real world example. If they ask you something that you do not know after this, say like a theory in diffusion, there are some theories in diffusion wherein you need to know the formula, etc. Now you don't know because you've no background. There is no connection between what you studied and what they are asking you. You politely say that, sir or ma'am, I have known the theory, I know the principle behind diffusion, but this aspect of diffusion which you are asking, I do not recall at the moment, but I'm sure I'll study about it. You politely tell them that you do not know this question. Correct.
Okay.
You say that there has been, because you have shifted to a different field of work. It's been long since you've actually been in touch with your textual subjects, it's fine. You politely say that you do not remember, yet you gave them an answer which conveyed that you know the principal, algorithm, everything.
Sure, sure. I just have one request. Although you listed down all the topics, right, from your memory, if you can just in a written form, right, share with us all the important topics which we should go through, right? That will help a lot, because you have those things fresh in your mind.
Correct. Okay. I'll
Yeah.
put that in chat. I mean, on the group itself, so that you at least know where and how to go about it.
Sure. That
Hello,
will help a lot. You.
Yes, Zanghar.
I am not Zanger. Actually, it's my Gmail ID. It's very Gmail
Okay,
ID.
I'm
My
very
my name is Aditya. Aditya.
okay, Aditya.
I passed out from NIT Suratkal and I have passed out in 2018-19 batch.
Okay,
I am working experience in oil and gas sector. I worked there for 2.5, approx 3 years, and then after I switched my department from there to finance department in a
okay.
roads where I was working as a trade developer. I was working in financial analyst. But
Correct.
if you go deep into my chemical, like I know that I am having a knowledge of a chemical engineer as a oil and gas expert, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't know about the. I know about the like very superficial idea of the mass transfer and heat transfer, but I currently don't remember about the deep knowledge. So how can I divert my topic from there to here? Like I have a very pretty much good knowledge of finance currently because I
Okay.
switched my topic totally from there to here.
Okay, so yours is a very yours is a transition that B schoolers love very much, because you have transitioned into, say, a finance domain right now. So they will like your answer if you frame it if you frame it correctly. Because see, you have worked in oil and gas field, so there will be questions related to that. But say that to gain a holistic experience or to transition into a different role because you wanted to try something else or wanted to get a hands-on on a different domain altogether, you transitioned into this into the finance domain, and now along with knowing all the intricacies of oil and gas sector, you also know the financial aspects of the sector, say how pricing is done, or the I think since you spoke about trade, you would probably know how the import export thing works, right?
Yes, yes.
Correct. So you speak about all of that, and that would help you. Say that you have a very rock solid background in oil and gas, and you transitioned into a different vertical because you wanted to see how different aspects of oil and gas work as well in the finance sector, in the export sector. You will probably get a lot of questions on the geopolitical scenario because yours is a very trade centric role. So I think you will get a lot of questions around that.
Look, I'm asking this question because last year
Mm-hmm.
also I scored very good in CAT and in a
Mm-hmm.
snap every exam.
Mm-hmm.
But excuse me. But
Mm-hmm.
last year interview, I don't know why, but they are constantly getting back towards my chemical questions. Like I
Okay.
have to shift my gear from there to finance. Like I was saying that yeah, I am having a too much knowledge. I also clear CFA level 1. You can ask me from there. But no, the
Okay.
problem like I don't know, they have more love towards engineer or what, but they were constantly going, well, okay, just give me a they asked me a proper formula of mass transfer. Like if I am putting this for formic acid, what would be the mass transfer formula at the end? And that's how
Okay.
they totally I was amazed, like I'm having a good knowledge. I'm working in a road style is a firm which is coming in a top ABC. I was working there, but I don't know, they are not asking any question on that. They
So,
have more,
I'm very sorry to interrupt. Yeah, continue, please.
they have more knowledge in, like, okay, you passed out from NIT, so you must have good knowledge of chemical engineering. So just tell me what are these? And they grill me a lot last year, and I don't want
Okay.
to discuss this
No,
here.
no, it's fine. It's fine. I would just want to know, you do you mention that you worked as in a different role in your introduction, or you just speak about CFA, your current role, or the
No, I
last?
already mentioned, and they already have my script. Like
Mm-hmm.
that, I was working in a as a rig engineer, as a production engineer in a oil and gas firm, and then after I switched my role. Actually, that time I have only 8 to 7 months of experience in that new
Okay.
firm, so that might be the reason.
Okay. Might be. possibility. But see, I think to tackle this situation, give them recency bias. So say what you are doing or where you want to drive the conversation. I mean, say that, say whatever you want to towards the end of your introduction. Say all the things in the beginning, but end it with this: I'm a finance enthusiast. I want to pursue a career, or I want to go into finance roles. Now my short term goals are getting into finance roles, etc. I've also done a CFA. Although, I mean, you tell them that you bring the best of both worlds to the table. Say that you are a chemical engineer, but you have transitioned into a finance role, and now you have worked so hard for it. So give them a lot of recency bias so that they can pick up from your finance part of the answer.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying this is the tried and tested method to go about it. I'm pretty sure mentors and Prashant sir or Shubham sir would guide you more. But the best way to do is, if I want them to ask me about my finance journey, I would say that towards the end, before I say my hobbies or interests. That's how I frame my answer, because I want them to remember that part.
I don't know. Like I did the same thing. Actually, I
Okay.
also joined last year GDPI. I also like prepare my answer like this way, but
Okay.
I don't know. Like they were constantly going back towards my ACADS and all that. Yeah, you have very good score in ACADS, so tell us this and that. Like I scored at ACADS at that
How
time, but
many programs, how many interviews you faced the difficulty?
almost I have total 4 interview last year, which I consider as a good interview. And in a three of them I faced. SIBM Pune was little bit okay because they switch like, but
I
Accelerate
don't see any
was not.
problem with this, right? So Aditya, I think there was some problem in your communication in the start. I have never seen, like, in 1 or 2 interview it's possible, but all 3 interviews, if you are facing this, then it means that there was some problem with your introduction that needs to be checked.
Okay, okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. I will also like I will join your course after exam and I will give my introduction as well, so you can correct me on
Yeah.
that.
Others, any doubts?
Yeah, so
I
not
know one.
sure. Go ahead, Aditya.
The last question. It's not for me. It's for my one of my friend. Like he is also from a chemical engineer from the different college, but he is having a semester of backlog. Like in 2 subjects, he was having backlog. Although he is currently working in a BPCL at very good condition. But the thing is that how to like cover that, like हाँ मैंने एक और semester का भी extra exam दिया था.
Can you repeat, Aditya?
Like मेरा जो दोस्त है वो like मेरे बैचमेट का ही है,
Mm-hmm.
बट उसकी थर्ड ईयर में एक बार बैकलॉग लगा था एक सेमेस्टर में.
Okay.
ऑल दो बीपीसीएल में काम कर रहा है, अच्छी पोस्ट पे है, बट
Mm-hmm.
अगर उसको ये कवर अप करना हो, वो भी एक्चुअली ज्वाइन नहीं हुआ क्योंकि वो भी कंपनी में है. अगर उसको ये चीज़ कवर अप करना हो तो वो कैसे कवर अप करेगा कि
So, बोल दो difficult subject था. What is the passing percentage? Why to cover up? Be honest in your answers, right? So there are
उसके
many subjects in every branch which are difficult to crack in one attempt, right? So I know, like, I am from computer science, so there was subject automata. So every second student used to get back in those subjects. So tell them that this was another subject I was not able to focus completely, and things came totally like out of syllabus, or maybe the old syllabus paper came like this. If something has happened, you can tell them upfront. Don't cover up things. टेल देम जो भी सच है वो बोलो. अगर सच के साथ भी स्कूल एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर रहा है तो झूठ बोल के तो कभी नहीं करेगा.
ओके ओके.
या भवेश.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Sharanya, for letting us know of these all topics which we can go through. But even these topics are very vast. I mean, it will take some time to get through each and everything. So, is it a good strategy to focus on one subject completely and prepare it in depth and just have a basic understanding of everything else? So, even if let's say the panelists ask us questions about the other subjects we haven't prepared, we can let them know that our favorite subject is this, and so that they can switch it there.
I think you can definitely do this. It can be a strategy, but I wouldn't say that it's the best strategy, because I think for B school interviews, it's good if you know. I mean, it's always good to know more than to know things in depth, because then you can gas around a lot with jargons, etc. So I would say it's a good strategy if you are very good at one subject. But most interviewers won't ask you what your favorite subject is or what you'd like to be questioned for. So I think it's a better strategy to like know more than to know things in depth, because then you'll at least be able to answer more questions that way. Because you never know if they are going to solely ask you heat transfer or mass transfer. They might ask you something out of everything, but then they won't really. I mean, it's not always a grilling interview, so they won't want your answers to be very extensive or elaborate. But yeah, I mean, I don't know, Prashant sir, what would you suggest?
So there will be at least an idea of things that you have studied in your engineering, plus 2 or 3 like evergreen subjects. I'm not the chemical expert. It's still, if you know basics of chemistry, right? Like I know people were asked formula of Dettol, right? So such type of questions, that will be good. Plus 2 of your core subjects if you are prepared. So in case they start the rapid fire, so you should know that after 2 or 3 questions, where to stop them and tell them that, sir, for this interview, I have prepared basics of chemical engineering plus these 2 subjects in detail. Can you ask from that? Anyways, 3 question तुमने answer नहीं किए back to back, it means कि your interview is going to some wrong direction. It's your responsibility that you take them to the track and give them something from where they can ask something. So पहला क्वेश्चन उन्होंने पूछा, ठीक है कोई बात नहीं, you can say sorry I don't know. Second question पूछा, if it's coming from same area, then again you can say ठीक है. But तीसरा क्वेश्चन है, it means that there is a red flags. They want to check you something on something. तो तुमको ये भी बोलना है कि सर देखो ये वाला सब्जेक्ट नहीं पढ़ के आए हो, ये पढ़ के आए हो, ये तो पूछ लो कम से कम. If they will be interested, they will ask. Otherwise, they will change the subject.
Right.
Yes, Rishabh.
Thank you, Sharanya, for taking time for this session. I was going through some of the scripts of on Quora of the interview. So regarding can I was going through them. So I found some questions on M1, M2 also, like Taylor series and some other. I don't remember. I guess Francis series. So those were the series which were taught in M1. And as we were having discussion on backlog, so I flunked my M1. The reason, as Prashant sir was trying to say, that you can say that professor is, I wouldn't say that the professor is not lenient, although he has a track record for decades. So the passing percentage is really low. That's the only back I have. So like regarding maths, engineering mathematics, what can you suggest or give the guidance on?
I think, Rishabh, engineering mathematics is one subject which is not really popular or asked a lot. And even if you have like a backlog or an F grade in the subject, it's completely fine. You as sir mentioned, you can be very candid and honest about it. You can even say that you got sick and you were so scared about the exam that it gave you fever. You can say stuff like that. They won't ask you a lot about these series, etc. Because one thing is that these series have become very redundant in nature. They are no longer used, less application. The second thing, even if they ask M1, M2, it will be more towards your numerical methods in engineering, which is like an easier version of what you're saying. When you say numerical methods, there are different methods. There is Euler series. There's some Range Kutta method. I don't remember all of them, but it's like the easier version of M1, M2. Even if they go into this subject, they'll probably be restricted to this domain only. There is very little application I find of these subjects. So your interview wouldn't, I mean, they obviously don't they don't go through your transcripts that much. So I think that is important, that you just be honest about whatever you know. And even if they ask you something which has just gone beyond you, you can politely answer that, sir, this is not really what I remember or recall at the moment, but because it's been long, it's a long time, and you can go on to the next question.
Got it. Thank you very much.
And as I said, I don't really think M2 या M1 आएगा, because it's been, I don't think they probably teach you that in first, second semesters only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just one more thing, Prashant sir, if you allow. So, do we have to keep this session specific to chemical engineering related, graduation related questions, or we can have IIFT specific questions also?
Yeah,
You can
anything.
you can ask me IIFT questions.
Yeah. So, Shania, so what can we expect from IIFT if you have to, guide like regarding what are the things specifically which are asked in the IIFT? If you can, throw some little bit light on that.
Okay, so first of all, when you've cleared all the sectional cutoffs, etc., when you get the call, you will get a CV form which is to be filled. It has an extensive list of questions. It has a lot of background. It has a lot of your future goals, your academic qualifications, your educational qualifications. So it's a very long list of questions, which normally tend to get repeated every year, but there are small corrections whatsoever. Any which ways, you have to fill that form first. Post that, you will have a round of personal interview. In that personal interview, you will get to you will have like a 2-minute extempore. It is usually said that the process changes a little every year. I am not very sure if that is if that holds veracity, because it's almost the same every year. It's PI and it has an extempore, so it's 2 minutes of extempore on topics I cannot really encapsulate in one go. It could be anything. It could be abstract, technical, current affairs. It could be very statistical in nature. It could be very current affairs based. It could be something related to politics. It could be very as abstract as I mean, I don't know how you interpret the color of sky. Waisa kuch. So that is something, that is the extempore part. Then you have your personal interview section, wherein they ask you questions around your CV, your grad subjects. If your extempore was very controversial, or your extempore was something which could be subject to questions, they ask you questions around that also. So this is how the process of IIFT goes. And apart from this, you don't need to do anything else for preparation, because for all interviews, I think our GDPI program is such corroborated that you will cover everything, and the method of preparation remains same. Only pointer being, I mean, if you know something about trade, or you sound very confident about international business negotiations or international business matters in your interview, you will obviously get an edge. Study about the market, study about international market a little. Keep a tab on the news and current affairs around you, so that you sound very convincing in your interview. For IIFT specific, you don't need to do this for all your interviews, just for IIFT. And also your CV form should be well written. This is my 2-pointer advice.
Thank you.
शुभम, इस बार IIFT का क्या लगता है आपको, कहाँ तक जाएगा कट ऑफ वट ऑफ?
That we can discuss later. So
Yeah.
One more question, Sharanya, from my side.
Yeah.
Depending upon the B school, right? Let's say A, B, or C, do the depth into which they go into grad subject differ?
Not much. I wouldn't say it differs a lot. It doesn't differ on the basis of B school. It differs on the basis of the panelists that you are having. If your panelist or the person who's interviewing you is from an engineering background, he or she would tend to go more in your grad subject. If he or she is a, say, business professor, or teaches something related to marketing, or marketing or strategy, he or she won't go deep into whatever they're asking. But again, speaking from personal experience, both of my interviewers were engineers, and had an engineering background. They were statistics professors in my college, so they went a little deep into my engineering wala portion. It depends on panelist. It is not B school specific.
And they do know some things about like the chemical also, right? I mean, although chemical sounds a bit not so mainstream, but yeah.
They know. They have a set of questions. They have a long list of questions, in fact, which they tend to not repeat with different people. They have answers to that question. They also know how much or how less is to be answered. So yeah, they're experienced people sitting, so we can, expect them to like be knowledgeable of the subject.
Sure. One thing, Rishabh mentioned that there is M1 and M2 some subjects. So in my where I studied numerical analysis. There was one, and there was data analysis, right? So are we talking about the same things?
We are talking about Mathematics 1 and Mathematics 2, which are a part of the course curriculum for colleges that adopt the BTech or BE engineering format. But even if you have not studied M1 and M2 Mathematics 1 and 2 and in the same epithet, even then I think you must have studied the topics under some or the other course that you've had. So if you studied, I'm sorry.
Numerical analysis and data analysis, they were very detailed, right? I mean, I think they were very good, two good courses in chemical for learning statistics. So they were very good actually. So we should prepare for that because professors being from business college, they would ask on statistics, right? Statistics is something which is used.
But for chemical, you have a point. You have a very valid point. But they don't ask you stats normally if you do not have a stats honors on your CV, they wouldn't ask you stats per se. Plus, they wouldn't, being a chemical student myself and seeing a lot of other chemical engineering peers, I don't think this is something that they go into. I mean, it could happen. Obviously, there is a possibility for everything. What I'm saying is not an exhaustive list. It's not the end of the world. But there is very little chance that they would go to this because stats is something which all other every other branch studies in some way or the other. So it's not chemical engineering specific.
Sure.
Stats pay, do not rack your brains on stats because it's first very difficult. Second, if you do not have a stats honors on your CV, they won't go into stats. It's difficult to like answer questions around statistics in general. Plus B school aate hi you'll have a course in it. So generally nahi pucha jata hai.
And you suggest that we should cover broadly the whole curriculum, the major topics which we studied, right? And we should do we need to go into depth of one or two subject because by depth I mean actually go in depth and knowing many things rather than just touching the broadly the subject. So is that required?
No, I think Bhavesh also had a similar question because what he said was also correct. Ki ek aad subject pe you have a grasp, firm command, and baki mein you just brush off the concepts. But sir ने भी बोला और हमारी भी यही advice है कि आप ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा try करो कि ऊपर से पता हो. बहुत depth में पूछेंगे ही नहीं. But make sure कि अगर ऊपर से कुछ पूछते हैं तो at least you know about the subject, you know क्या full form है. HTO बोला तो पता होना चाहिए कि हीट ट्रांसफर ऑपरेशंस होता है. MTO बोला तो मास ट्रांसफर ऑपरेशंस है. ये सब पता होना चाहिए. तो बहुत बेसिक चीजें क्लियर होनी चाहिए. कितनी तरह की हीट ट्रांसफर होता है, हीट एक्सचेंजर्स कितने तरह के होते हैं, ये सब पता होना चाहिए. इवन इफ योर फेवरेट सब्जेक्ट इज थर्मोडायनेमिक्स इज व्हाट आई एम मीनिंग टू से.
ओके श्योर.
ट्राई टू कवर ब्रेड्थ और पहले ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिविटी बढ़ा लें अपने नॉलेज बेस का, फिर ट्राई टू गो इन डेप्थ.
Sure. How much time should we give to for revising the grad subject? मतलब कितना टाइम देना चाहिए?
See, it's very subjective as a question also, but बहुत समय नहीं देना चाहिए is what I'll say. थोड़ा थोड़ा डेली दे सकते हैं या मतलब बीच बीच में you just revise whatever, because थोड़े दिन पे कोई पंडित नहीं बन जाएगा पढ़ के is what I mean to say. And do not overstress yourself about your subjects. Be very relaxed about it. आप लोग कर लोगे सब लोग डील क्वेश्चंस को. वैसे ही क्वेश्चंस आते हैं जो डील किए जा सकें. तो डोंट ओवर स्ट्रेस, डोंट बी वेरी नर्वस अबाउट योर ग्रेड सब्जेक्ट्स. हो जाएगा आराम से. थोड़ा थोड़ा करके यू गाइज स्टडी एंड आई थिंक यू ऑल विल ace your grad subject that way.
Sure. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if there are no more questions, sir, over to you.
Yeah, we can close this. It's already 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Sharanya. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. All the best.
Thank you, Sharanya.
Thanks, Rana.
Thanks, Sharanya.
Thank you very much.